Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
Morning, how you going?
Excellent, mate. Thanks very much for giving up your time this morning. Another footy season's come round, but interestingly, it's a long time since your last game. It's a long time since you were appointed coach of Thomson. You've done a pre-season and then it fizzed to nothing. You sat down all year and then another pre-season. How are you holding up, firstly, as a new footy coach?
Yeah, good. I mean, reflecting on that, it was certainly an interesting time to take over the reins and take over the coaching position. But probably learnt a lot from that first year. Just player management and communication skills and whatnot. So it probably put me in a pretty good position at the end of 2020. But ready to jump into this year, and it's been really enjoyable. So really looking forward to the season getting underway. I mean, it's been a very, very long wait, but well worth it.
And as a club, how do you bounce back from such a long time off?
I think we're pretty lucky overall because we've got a pretty stable group. I mean, most of that core group of players that were there at the end of 2019 are still a really big part of our team moving forward. So I think it probably helps that we have that stability. But it's all going to be see how it goes. Really, we don't know. We've had a whole year off, and it's been 18 months since we played our last game. So we're not going to really be able to tell you that until round 3 or 4, and once we're starting to get right into the season.
You said you've got a core base to the club, but at the end of 2019 you would have gone off and done some recruiting. But those players who haven't been part of your club, your culture, your group, did you find yourself just needing to stay in contact with them through 2020 or almost having to re-recruit them to make sure that they were going to continue to be part of your plans?
Yeah, well, we brought about 4 or 5 guys in at the end of 2019, and we've lost probably only one of those. Jack Hodgson returned back to St Joey's. So, we did stay in touch, and that was probably a really big focus of Westies and I. We really wanted to keep that nucleus together. And then obviously we've been pretty lucky to add some pretty good names and some pretty good guys to our mix for the 2021 season, and it's all kind of come together. We've had that really big team building emphasis and making sure we're bringing the right guys in to facilitate and make sure that culture stays strong. But there was a lot of work that went in over last winter just to make sure people were happy and people hung around. And when it was time to sign on again this year, everyone was pretty lucky and pretty happy to jump back on board.
A couple of important parts. We know you've lost a Neville Whitley medalist and your coach, obviously very difficult to instantly replace. So that particular role, did you, knowing that Reece wouldn't be back, did you recruit specifically to bolster your midfield cover, or were you confident that you had youth coming up into that spot?
Look, we definitely had some depth in the midfield, and we had guys in that 2019 season that probably were pushed out of that midfield group that have been able to, be put back into that this year and moving forward for the rest of 2021. But, I mean, our recruiting was, our first port of call was we really wanted to shore up our ruck stocks. We lost Matty Baden at the end of 2019 as well, who was a premier ruckman within the league, but obviously within our club was an absolute star to lose. But that was our first port of call. We really wanted to get 2 strong senior-bodied ruckmen in, which we've been able to do. But I mean, we were lucky. We've replaced Reece Holwell with another Neville Whitley medalist in Brent McLeod. So, I mean, you can say it's like for like, but you can't ever really fully replace Reece. What he did for the club and what he did for the guys on and off the field was massive. So to say he's replaceable is probably a little bit short of the mark. He's a tough guy to replace, but we really looked at forwards and our ruck stocks because we knew we had that core group of midfielders who could push back into that rotation.
You're part of a very important defensive unit, but interestingly, you're obviously still very much in the prime of your footy. Andrew Hodgson, who was at at that age where I suppose it's difficult to miss a year and keep continuity. Of course, Adam Wiseman, who for 10 years has been in the twilight of his career. What's the status of those two fellas, and are they still going to be there beside you to hold the defence together?
Yeah, so Hodgie probably stepped away just a little bit through 2020, obviously with his cricket commitments, and was just kind of getting himself into a position where he could play. But I think for him that year off was a massive motivator. It's probably stoked the fire a little bit for him, and he's ready and raring to go. I'm talking to him on Thursday night. He's jumping out of his skin to be playing today. So I think it was good for him mentally to have that year off footy, because he's obviously a two-sport player. He's got the cricket in the summer and footy in the winter, so he doesn't get much time to himself. So I think that was beneficial for him. So he's absolutely flying at the moment, looking as good as he's ever looked when he's been down at Thomson. So he's a massive part to our backline setup and structure. Wiz, I don't know how much you'd like you saying he was in the twilight of his career for 10 years, but I think that's a reality. You know, he is getting on in age, and he's been training with us, and the hope is that he'll be right to play. But, you know, you just don't know what's going to happen once we do start getting back into regular season and guys are taking knocks and having to butter up and go again week after week. But we'll manage that as best we can, because, once again, he's an absolute excellent player to have. And an even better bloke to have off the field. So we'll manage that as best we can.
Yeah, and it was very respectful that he's just one of those fellas that, because he's got that wiry build and he hasn't suffered many injuries, you could imagine him playing for a long, long time. He plays with such skill and knowledge, and I know that he gets pretty upset about the fact that it looks like he plays without an opponent, but he just reads the game so well and probably keeps himself out of dangerous situations, which has given him some longevity, but just an important part of your group, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. And he just brings that extra element of voice and knowledge. He sets us up so well behind the footy. And, you know, you walk a little bit taller when you've got Wiz running out next year. But, yeah, he plays his way, and we really want to try and free him up a little bit this year. The last couple of seasons he's played that lockdown role as a centre-half back. So we want to try and get him into that floating half-back flank role where he can run and carry and use the footy, because, you know, his decision-making and his knowledge of the game is second to none. So we really want to tap into that this year and get some youth around him to kind of learn his tricks of the trade and just kind of mentor those guys through this season.
Interesting coaching with, I presume, Jared is going to continue to play as well. The previous method worked well for you because you had a brilliant on-field leader and his co-coach standing on the bench observing from a different view. How have you worked through managing match day tactics if both the coaches are going to be on the ground?
Yeah, well, Westy, obviously, you know, he comes from a pretty highly credentialed background in terms of footy himself. His ability to read the game and set things up is spectacular. His motto for me has always been, you know, when the first ball goes up, I'm a player. And then at, you know, quarter time, half time, three-quarter time, we'll always meet together to discuss, but he'll take care of most of that on-field leadership in terms of the coaching, and I kind of get to slot back into my role as a player, but by no means does that mean that, you know, I'm not the coach on game day, but I'll be doing a little bit more pre-game stuff, and he'll be taking care of most of the stuff on the field. But, you know, Westy, I can't speak highly enough of him. His ability to be organised and his communication and just his ability to connect with people is spectacular as well. So I think we're in a really good position to have two playing coaches, and we've got some really good support on the bench in an ex-player in Stephen McLeod and obviously Jason Stein as well. So that'll be taken care of off the field. But yeah, we're really happy with how the group's set up now, and we've got everyone in the positions where we'd like them.
So at breaks, the players may hear both of your voices at different times, as opposed to just one taking the mantle of giving direction?
Depending on where the situation is, obviously, I think majority of it will be Jared. Jared will do most of the in-game break addresses. But obviously, if there's anything that needs to be added or anything that needs to be said, I'm highly capable of taking that role on as well. So, but I think it's really important that we've got that clarity around who's doing what and their roles within the team, but also within that coaching setup as well. So, majority will be Jared, but I'm sure I won't be silent for too long. That's for sure.
You lost a grand final many thought you couldn't lose in 2019, so the team is definitely at the pointy end of the competition. At that stage, it sounds to me like your recruiting has been very, very specific to cover holes. So would it be fair to suggest for other clubs and particularly supporters of Thomson listening this morning that your expectations will be no different than they were at the start of 2019 with 221 coming up?
I think that obviously each year you play footy, and this is pretty stereotypical for a footballer to say that. You want to be in a position where you can see yourself competing at the end of the year, and by all means that's our goal. Obviously, we don't want to go through that one week at a time kind of mantra, but I suppose that's all you can do. But our goal is to be in a position at the end of the home and away season to be competing for a premiership and put ourselves in a position to compete for that premiership again. Obviously, 2019 was never a given. There's some pretty highly talented teams and highly talented individuals within our league at the moment, and look, to be honest, we probably did lose the one that no one thought we could, but I think if anything that just, burns that desire a little bit further within our group to be able to back up and put ourselves in a spot to compete for a grand final again this year.
And you will have no doubt noticed what's going on around you at other clubs. There's been a huge injection of young people from around Victoria coming to try out with the Geelong VFL system, and they filter down into the GFL, and we're certainly seeing GFL players filtering into the Bellarine, and the same now. Geelong and District Standard has improved incredibly over the last 5 years, but what's also happened is that it's really closed the competition. There was a stage where I remember you finished fourth 2 or 3 years in a row, and there was a fair gap between the top three, but I would have thought there'd be half a dozen sides at this stage who'd realistically expect to be premiers, and I reckon 9 of the clubs at least would be expecting to play finals. So it has improved quickly, the comp, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've watched it obviously over the last 10 or 12 years gradually just get better and better, and being involved, at that interleague level. Some of the guys you get to play with through that time of the year, you kind of sit back and look and say, wow, we've done really well as a league to bring some really good names in. And yeah, I mean, the competition's always, at this point of the year, everyone, thinks it's going to be really even, and I do genuinely believe that this year. I think it's going to be a bit of an even competition, and there's going to be a lot of teams that are competing not only to play finals, but I genuinely think there's probably 4 or 5 teams that could compete to win it at the end of the year. But that's just a credit to the league itself, because as you said, we're bringing some good guys in, and we've been pretty fortunate to be part of that movement. We've brought some really, really good guys in from the BFL, and hopefully that holds us in good stead, and we can be in that position at the end of this year to be competing for a grand final, because that's why we play footy.
Good on you, mate. Thank you very much for your time. Best wishes to you and Jared in your new world. I hope it works out well for you, and again, we thank you for your time. You've been very giving in the past, and we'll probably speak to you again during the season, and best wishes for you.
Thanks, mate. No worries. Hey, I just wanted to make a quick shout out. Thomson have got the fourth in the cricket grand final today, so I just wanted to wish them all the best, and hopefully they can bring home some silverware before the footy boys get to have a crack at it.
Good on you, mate. Excellent words. Good luck. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for your time.